Today we're going to be looking at David Grusch's opening statement at the congressional hearings for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena. Did I say that right? Anomalous Phenomena. My name is Alex Howard. I'm a communication studies professor. I've been teaching for about 10 years, and over this time I've evaluated many thousands of presentations, so I think I have a unique perspective to give on what he's saying here. So let's take a look.
Mr. Chairman, ranking members and congressmen, thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is an important issue and I'm grateful for your time. My name is David Charles Grusch. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years, both in the U.S. Air Force, both active duty, Air National Guard, and Reserve, at the rank of major, and most recently from 2021 to 2023.
So he messed up his lines there. That's fine. He's under an extremely stressful situation. I wouldn't make anything of that little mess up. He is attempting to establish his credibility, which is an important task for any speaker, to let your audience know who you are and why you are an authority on the subject matter, which he is doing at the beginning here.
At the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, at the GS-15 civilian level, which is the military equivalent of a full bird colonel. I was my agency's co-lead in unidentified anomalous phenomena and transmedium object.
Try to say that fast 10 times. Unidentified anomalous phenomena, unidentified anomalous. Okay, it's difficult to say.
Object analysis, as well as reporting to the UAP task force, UAPTF, and eventually, once it was established, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARROW. I became a whistleblower through a PPD 19 urgent concern filing in May 2020.
So one thing to take note of here, and he does this consistently throughout this opening statement, is the use of a lot of industry-specific jargon, like these acronyms, these kind of like letter abbreviations for things. Now, because he's speaking to Congress, some of them might be familiar with those. I would bet that most of them aren't familiar with all of the like words and phrases that he's kind of throwing out here. And certainly if he's looking at speaking to a wider audience of the general population, he's getting a little bit too technical with his language here. So that's something that is a little interesting.
With the Intelligence Community Inspector General. Following concerning reports from multiple esteemed and credentialed current and former military and intelligence community individuals that the U.S. government is operating with secrecy above congressional oversight with regards to UAPs.
So he's primarily relying upon his notes, but he is giving some eye contact to the panel members. The committee leaders, the Congress members are, I believe, physically above him in the room, so he's looking up at his intended audience here. So he's relying heavily on his notes. He is giving some eye contact. Now, what he just gave is the core of his statement, that he received essentially verbal reports from people that he viewed as credible in official positions. So he just kind of laid out the real big idea that's underlying his whole testimony and all of his statements, that he wanted to report on what he had heard from the people around him.
My testimony is based on information I've been given by individuals with a long-standing track record of legitimacy and service to this country, many of whom also have shared compelling evidence in the form of photography, official documentation, and classified oral testimony to myself and my various colleagues. I have taken every step I can to corroborate this evidence over a period of 4 years while I was with the UAP task force and do my due diligence on the individual sharing it. This is because of these steps, I believe strongly in the importance of bringing this information before you. I am driven by a commitment of both to truth and transparency, rooted in our inherent duty to uphold the United States Constitution and protect the American people.
So he's speaking at a pretty good steady rate. He seems somewhat assured in what he's saying. He has a relatively good posture and he's using small but present gestures. And he's expressing his motivations of seeking transparency and upholding the Constitution. So he's, in addition to talking about the positions and the titles that he's held, he's speaking to his greater motivations, which all collectively build up his credibility, his ethos as a speaker.
I'm asking Congress to hold our government to this standard and thoroughly investigate these claims.
And that's really his big ask in this in this opening statement is seeking more transparency. So in persuasion, you have to have a clear proposition, and that's what he's doing here. He is propositioning that there needs to be some oversight, some more transparency, some more methods for people coming forth with this kind of information. And so he's being specific with what he's asking for, which is an effective tool and method as a speaker.
But as I stand here under oath now, I am speaking to the facts as I've been told them. In the U.S. Air Force, in my National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, reservist capacity, I was a member of the UAP Task Force from 2019 to 2021. I served at the NRO Operations Center on the Director's Briefing staff, which included the coordination of the Presidential Daily Brief and supporting a variety of contingency operations, which I was the Reserve Intelligence Division Chief backup.
Okay, so now he kind of gets in the weeds with all these titles and like official positions. He's continuing to expand his credibility with, I think, these titles that he's describing, but I think he's losing people in the wider audience, the general public, maybe even some Congress members. So I think that he didn't necessarily need to go that deep into just relying solely on these titles, especially since all of his information hinges upon eyewitness testimony, things that he saw and heard from other people around him, and he doesn't actually hold all this evidence. So it does look a little iffy that he's relying so heavily on all these titles that he's held in the past or currently.
In 2019, the UAP Task Force Director asked me to identify all special access programs and controlled access programs, also known as SAPs and CAPs.
Okay, again, with all these acronyms and abbreviations, it's a little bit maddening. But he does have a strong ability to express himself and use vocal variety to strengthen his claims and ideas. So I think that's why he's been so captivating to the general population, because he does have some dynamism as a speaker.
We needed to satisfy our congressionally mandated mission, and we were direct report at the time to the DepSecDef. At the time, due to my extensive executive level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant compartments and in a position of extreme trust, both in my military and civilian capacities. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
So right there, that's an extremely extraordinary claim, what he said, just that he was informed of extraterrestrial vehicle retrieval program. I mean, this is just a really big, bold claim. And it almost gets hidden in all of his technicality in his statements. So he almost kind of snuck that in there. But this is a really big, bold claim that he's making in the statement.
To which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it. I made the decision, based on the data I collected, to report this information to my superiors and multiple inspectors general, and in effect becoming a whistleblower. As you know, I've suffered retaliation for my decision, but I am hopeful that my actions will ultimately lead to a positive outcome of...
This was also one of his main talking points, that he claims he suffered retaliation for blowing the whistle on this kind of program and these details of what was going on. So this is the other one of the main points that he is trying to reveal here.
Increased transparency. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Okay, so it's very limited opening statements. He spends much more time responding to questions from the Congress members. But if you look at his body language, he seems relatively confident, maybe just a little bit nervous. He has a pretty good voice and vocal variety. His credibility is, assuming he is there's no, I don't know, all of these government positions that he's holding, given that he's using all of these acronyms and abbreviations. But you have to assume that he is a credible person who has had official, roles in the government, given that he's speaking to Congress. You have to assume that there is some credibility to that. And his persuasiveness, he is asking for something simple: more transparency, more oversight, more information being given to Congress, and more protection for whistleblowers in this area, in this field. If I were to bet, is he telling the truth or not? Based on this simple statement, you would have to say he's believable. Now, going beyond this, he has made way more extraordinary claims. Later in the question and answer session, he essentially says that he has heard from people that they have alien physical bodies that the government is holding in hiding, that there is some malevolent intentions to the alien technologies or beings that have been in contact with people or something like. So he has made really extraordinary claims here, and you have to put that into context. So if I were a betting person, and if I had to guess whether or not he's being fully truthful, I believe that he believes what he's saying. So is that lying? I guess it's not a lie if you believe it. But is there full truth in everything that he's saying and all of his claims in and outside of this specific video here? You can't believe that it's all true. You have to use critical thinking skills. You need a reliable bullshit detector. And my bullshit radar is going off a little bit, frankly, with some of his statements, relying too heavily on his titles and using all of these abbreviations and acronyms and getting us lost in this language of technicality. Some of the extraordinary claims that he's making about them having alien bodies and crafts and reverse engineering programs and all of these things. The burden of evidence is on these folks to prove some kind of a conspiracy. You can't just assume that it's true and that you need some kind of evidence to prove otherwise. So I did find, I believe the names of the other folks that testified were David, I can't remember the name, David Fravor and Ryan Graves, I think they were called. I did find them to be a little bit more credible because they stuck to a limited scope of what they specifically saw with their own eyes. And they didn't really go beyond that. Whereas Mr. Grusch here is going quite a bit beyond that. He's making way more extraordinary claims here. So for that reason, I just don't know if we could see everything that he's saying as being fully credible and reliable. Now, I'd be happy to be proven wrong with irrefutable evidence that all of the things that he's saying is true, but of course he couldn't provide any of that today. He did offer to give more specific statements in a closed session, not being televised with the Congress members, but we don't have any of that yet. So who knows? He's just another person giving these extraordinary claims. So in terms of them asking Grusch, Graves, and Fravor for more transparency and oversight, I think that's great. And I think that there might be something to that. And there's an incredible bipartisan push for more transparency and oversight. So I think he might actually be successful in that endeavor. So I find this whole thing very interesting and fascinating. I hope you do too. What do you make of Mr. David Grusch here? Do you think he's full of secrets and truth, or do you think he's full of something else? So let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.